World War I wasn't just a battle. It was a storm of innovation, strategy, and human endurance. From trenches filled with mud to skis dominated by airplanes, every fact reveals a story of courage, science, and survival. In the next few minutes, discover 100 facts that shaped one of history's deadliest conflicts. Chapter 1. World War I started in 1914 after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Tensions between nations were like a tightly wound spring. Countries formed alliances that dragged the world into conflict. Trains, telegraphs, and early tanks became tools of war. People underestimated how quickly technology could transform battlefields. History had set a chain reaction, and no one could stop it once the first shot was fired. Chapter 2. The war introduced trench warfare, where soldiers lived in mud, lice, and constant fear. Life expectancy on the front lines was frighteningly short. Disease spread faster than bullets, and psychology became part of survival. Yet, soldiers wrote letters home, sharing small victories and human moments. War became both a mechanical machine and a human nightmare, blending science, strategy, and sheer endurance in a deadly mix. Chapter 3. Poison gas emerged as a deadly innovation. Chlorine and mustard gas could blind, burn, or choke soldiers within minutes. Gas masks were invented in response, a primitive but life-saving science. Despite the horror, armies saw chemical weapons as game changers. The battlefield became a mix of chemistry and courage. Survival depended on reflexes, technology, and luck, highlighting how science could both save and destroy life instantly. Chapter 4. Tanks rolled onto battlefields for the first time in history. Slow and clunky, they seemed like metal beasts. Soldiers inside were isolated from the world, yet their presence terrified enemies. The science of armored engineering changed strategy forever. Armies now had a new weapon that combined firepower and protection. Tanks symbolized the shift from human-only combat to mechanized warfare, a glimpse into the future of battles. Chapter 5. Airplanes started as reconnaissance tools but soon dropped bombs. Pilots risked life and altitude with fragile engines. The skies became a dangerous frontier. Dogfights showcased human skill and courage, yet technology dictated survival. Aircraft turned battles vertical, forcing generals to rethink strategy. Physics, aerodynamics, and bravery collided. The war was no longer just on land or sea. The air itself became a deadly battlefield. Chapter 6. Naval warfare evolved with massive dreadnoughts and submarines. The seas were a chessboard of steel and strategy. Submarines could disappear underwater and strike unexpectedly, a deadly science of stealth. Convoys and code breaking became essential. The ocean was both highway and battlefield, shaping how nations projected power. Even miles from the front, survival depended on navigation, technology, and sharp calculation. Chapter 7. Communication relied on telegraphs, radios, and pigeons. Every message was a lifeline or a risk. Intercepted signals could turn the tide of battle. The science of encryption became crucial, blending math and strategy. Commanders depended on speed and accuracy. War was as much about brains as brawn. A single delayed message could mean the difference between victory and disaster, showing how intelligence itself became a weapon. Chapter 8. Propaganda spread like wildfire, shaping public opinion and morale. Newspapers, posters, and speeches used psychology to recruit soldiers and maintain support. Science of influence wasn't new, but global media amplified it. Citizens at home became part of the war effort. Victory depended not just on weapons, but on belief, emotion, and perception. The battlefield extended into minds and hearts far from trenches and cannons. Chapter 9. Medical science faced unprecedented challenges. Field hospitals treated massive casualties with limited knowledge. Antibiotics didn't exist yet, so infection was deadly. Innovations in surgery, anesthesia, and triage emerged under pressure. Doctors experimented with techniques that saved countless lives. War accelerated medical science, showing how crisis forces rapid innovation. Pain and survival coexisted, and every life saved felt like a small victory amid chaos. Chapter 10. The war changed maps and empires. Borders shifted, old monarchies fell, and new nations emerged. Diplomacy and treaties tried to impose order on chaos. Science and industry had fueled destruction, but they also influenced rebuilding. Lessons in logistics, engineering, and strategy echoed into the future. The world realized that technology, ambition, and alliances could create global conflict, or prevent it if lessons were learned. Chapter 11. Machine guns dominated battlefields, firing hundreds of rounds per minute. Soldiers had to crawl through mud and craters to survive. The science of mechanics made killing faster, more precise. Tactics had to adapt or entire units were wiped out. Barbed wire, trenches, and artillery combined with machine guns created a deadly puzzle. Survival depended on movement, timing, and sheer nerve under relentless fire. Chapter 12. Zeppelins floated above, scouting and bombing cities. Lighter-than-air science turned skis into a surveillance tool. These airships were slow but massive, carrying fuel and bombs. Defending against them required early anti-air strategies. Fear of an unseen threat above shaped civilian life. Technology expanded the battlefield vertically. The war was no longer contained. Entire regions could feel its deadly reach from the clouds. Chapter 13. Railways moved armies faster than ever before. Logistics became a science of speed and precision. Supplies, weapons, and reinforcements relied on tracks and timetables. Delays could cost thousands of lives. Engineers and planners became hidden heroes, designing transport like battle strategies. The battlefield was not just where soldiers fought, but where trains and schedules determined who would survive or advance. Chapter 14. Snipers redefined precision warfare. One well-placed bullet could change outcomes. Soldiers learned patience, camouflage, and patience combined with science of ballistics. Every movement mattered. Every shadow could hide danger. Snipers turned single men into powerful weapons. War became a blend of human skill and scientific calculation. The battlefield was alive with tension, measured in milliseconds and millimeters. Chapter 15. Artillery was the deadliest weapon of all. Shells could destroy trenches, towns, and morale. Calculations of distance, powder, and trajectory were science in action. Gunners needed math, observation, and instinct. Each explosion reshaped the land, carving craters and changing strategies. War became a science of destruction, yet it demanded courage and coordination. Every barrage reminded soldiers that physics could dictate life or death. Chapter 16. The war brought new roles for women. Factories, offices, and hospitals needed their skills. Science, engineering, and nursing became daily tools. Women proved critical in maintaining armies and nations. Their contributions shifted society, showing that war changed more than borders. It changed who could fight and serve. Courage wasn't just on the front line. It was behind machines, desks, and hospital beds too. Chapter 17. Psychological impact became undeniable. Shell shock affected thousands, a mix of trauma and stress science couldn't yet fully explain. Soldiers faced mental battles as intense as physical ones. Therapy, rest, and camaraderie were early solutions. The war revealed the human brain's limits under extreme conditions. Understanding fear, resilience, and trauma became a new kind of science, shaping future treatment of soldiers. Chapter 18. Espionage became deadly science. Spies, codes, and double agents changed outcomes. Knowledge was power. Interception of secrets could end battles. The war showed that invisible intelligence often outweighed visible weapons. Science, mathematics, and psychology merged in secret operations. Every message intercepted or decoded could save lives or doom entire missions. In war, the mind became as lethal as any gun. Chapter 19. Medical evacuations improved rapidly. Ambulances, motorized or horse-drawn, brought wounded to field hospitals. Speed was life-saving. Innovations in triage and battlefield surgery reduced casualties. Science met compassion in mud-stained tents. Every rescued soldier was proof that knowledge, strategy, and technology could fight death itself. Survival became a race against time and infection, a high-stakes combination of science and human will. Chapter 20. War changed economies forever. Nations mobilized industry like never before, turning factories into war machines. Steel, chemicals, and energy were critical resources. Science guided production efficiency and innovation. Civilians and soldiers felt the consequences of industrialized conflict. Victory depended on not just soldiers, but supply chains and inventiveness. World War I taught that modern war wasn't just fought on fields, but in factories and laboratories. Chapter 21. The Christmas truce of 1914 showed humanity amid chaos. Soldiers from both sides exchanged greetings, sang carols, and even played football. Science couldn't explain why, but shared fatigue and hope created a brief peace. War paused for a few hours, proving that empathy survived even in extreme conditions. These moments reminded the world that beneath uniforms, humans still mattered. Chapter 22. Submarines or U-boats changed naval strategy forever. Silent and deadly, they attacked without warning. Science of underwater navigation and torpedo engineering made them lethal. Merchant ships had to travel in convoys, guarded by warships. Technology created fear beneath the waves. Entire supply lines depended on anticipation, sonar, and strategy. Oceans were no longer safe, showing how innovation could dominate unseen realms. Chapter 23. The Battle of the Somme demonstrated the horror of mass artillery. Millions of shells reshaped landscapes and lives. Soldiers faced extreme physics of explosions and shrapnel. Survival depended on trenches, timing, and sheer luck. Science measured trajectories and powder, but it couldn't prevent fear. The battle showed that industrialized warfare magnified human vulnerability, turning strategy into a deadly combination of calculation and chance. Chapter 24. Dogs served as messengers, scouts, and morale boosters. Animal intelligence became part of military science. Dogs delivered messages through mud, bullets, and chaos, often saving lives. Their loyalty and instincts complemented human strategy. Small creatures affected outcomes in ways technology sometimes couldn't. War proved that science and nature could collaborate, showing that even tiny allies mattered in vast conflicts. Chapter 25. Flamethrowers terrorized soldiers in trenches. Science of combustion turned fire into a weapon of psychological and physical destruction. Flames forced retreats, reshaped tactics, and tested courage. The device symbolized the brutal fusion of chemistry and human conflict. Every burst of fire was a warning, a reminder that warfare wasn't just physical, but also a psychological struggle against fear and instinct. Chapter 26. The Spanish flu of 1918 killed more than weapons did. Crowded camps and trenches became incubators. Science of virology was primitive, yet doctors fought to understand it. Soldiers faced both bullets and invisible pathogens. Disease shifted strategies, delayed offensives, and decimated armies. War demonstrated how biology could influence history, turning microscopic particles into decisive players alongside tanks and guns. Chapter 27. Tanks evolved quickly after their debut. From slow metal beasts, engineers improved speed, armor, and firepower. Science and battlefield experience merged. Tanks became tools of breakthrough, crushing barbed wire and forcing trenches to adapt. Armies learned that technology alone wasn't enough. Tactics and coordination were critical. Metal machines changed the rules, showing that innovation reshaped battlefields permanently. Chapter 28. Flies and rats thrived in trenches. Disease, contamination, and decay were constant threats. Soldiers relied on science of hygiene, limited as it was to survive. Improvised measures, cleanliness routines, and cautious habits became lifelines. The battlefield wasn't just enemy fire, it was biology in action. War taught that survival required awareness of unseen enemies as much as visible ones. Chapter 29. The Western Front stretched across hundreds of miles. Geography dictated strategy. Rivers, hills, and forests became tactical elements. Armies studied terrain, combining maps, reconnaissance, and science to plan attacks. Every obstacle influenced outcomes, from mud to mountains. Nature itself became a player in warfare, forcing humans to adapt and innovate, proving that even the land could be a strategic weapon. Chapter 30. War bonds and finance fueled armies. Citizens invested in governments to fund weapons, vehicles, and supplies. Economic science merged with psychology, motivating populations to sacrifice for victory. The home front became a battlefield of belief and money. Victory depended not just on soldiers, but on public support, resource allocation, and fiscal strategy. Nations realized that financial planning was now part of modern warfare. Chapter 31. Zeppelins weren't just for bombing, they gathered intelligence too. Observing enemy movements from the sky, they provided critical information. Science of aerodynamics and navigation made this possible. Commanders could plan offensives or avoid ambushes. Even fragile airships changed strategies. War proved that knowledge from above could be as powerful as firepower on the ground. Eyes in the sky became deadly tools. Chapter 32. The use of rail guns and heavy artillery emphasized precision engineering. Calculating distances, powder loads, and angles required skill and science. Shells could travel miles, reshaping battlefields and morale. Armies became calculators of destruction, blending math and mechanics. Each firing demanded coordination. Artillery dominated the war, proving that large-scale industrialized weaponry could overpower sheer human strength. Chapter 33. Trench foot affected thousands of soldiers. Constant wet and cold conditions caused infections, sometimes leading to amputations. Science of hygiene was limited, but measures like foot baths and rotation helped. Small medical innovations saved lives daily. Survival wasn't just about bullets, it was about care, awareness, and adaptation. Nature tested soldiers as much as enemy fire, making health science critical in warfare. Chapter 34. Barbed wire transformed defensive strategy. Simple yet deadly, it slowed infantry and channeled attacks. Engineers studied patterns, combining science and creativity. Soldiers learned that obstacles could be as lethal as weapons. Every inch of wire became a challenge to overcome. The battlefield was no longer just open ground. It was engineered chaos, turning human endurance into a tactical element. Chapter 35. Gas masks evolved alongside chemical warfare. Early designs were crude, but science improved them quickly. Soldiers learned to adapt, testing materials and filters under pressure. Chemistry and survival merged. Gas attacks were unpredictable, yet protective devices saved thousands. Innovation under fire proved that knowledge could literally breathe life into soldiers facing deadly science unleashed on the battlefield. Chapter 36. Observation balloons hovered over trenches. Anchored but elevated, they gave real-time intelligence. Observers reported troop movements, artillery positions, and enemy defenses. The science of optics and signaling enhanced strategy. Every balloon carried risk. Being shot down meant loss of information. Heights brought perspective, turning simple vision into tactical advantage. Knowledge literally elevated warfare to a new dimension. Chapter 37. Dogs sniffed out explosives and carried messages across battlefields. Their instincts and training complemented human tactics. Science of behavior and conditioning improved effectiveness. Animals became critical to operations, saving lives where technology struggled. Even small creatures proved indispensable. War was a collaboration between biology and strategy, showing that not all science was mechanical. Sometimes it had fur and 4 legs. Chapter 38. Medical triage became systematic. Soldiers were sorted based on injury severity and survivability. Early science of emergency care and prioritization saved lives. Decisions were fast, brutal, and precise. Hospitals became efficiency machines, blending compassion with logistics. Every decision impacted survival rates. War demanded not just courage, but structured intelligence in life-saving science, proving organization could beat chaos. Chapter 39. Submarines revolutionized trade warfare. U-boats attacked supply ships, threatening civilian and military resources alike. The science of stealth, sonar, and navigation dominated oceans. Convoys and countermeasures became essential. Survival depended on awareness and coordination. The war extended far beyond trenches, showing that dominance under the waves could determine global outcomes. Invisible enemies became as critical as visible ones. Chapter 40. Flamethrowers and incendiary devices tested human courage. Fire science made them terrifyingly effective. Soldiers faced both psychological and physical threats. Every deployment reshaped tactics and forced adaptations. Innovation wasn't just mechanical, it provoked fear, changing how soldiers approached trenches. Warfare blended technology and human instinct, proving that survival required knowledge, bravery, and a deep understanding of cause and effect. Chapter 41. The war popularized camouflage. Soldiers, equipment, and vehicles blended with surroundings to avoid detection. Science of color, pattern, and observation became vital. Artists and engineers collaborated to design effective concealment. Survival depended on being unseen as much as being armed. Nature and science combined, turning visual deception into a critical tool. Camouflage changed the way armies approached both offense and defense permanently. Chapter 42. Aircraft technology advanced rapidly. Fighters became faster, more maneuverable, and deadly. Pilots studied physics, aerodynamics, and machine maintenance. Dogfights required strategy, precision, and courage. The sky was no longer empty. It was a battlefield. Science and skill determined life or death. Aviation's rapid evolution proved that technological adaptation could shift warfare within months, redefining how battles were fought above ground. Chapter 43. Trench networks stretched for miles underground. Soldiers dug elaborate tunnels to protect, ambush, or transport. Engineering and geology merged with survival. Ventilation, drainage, and camouflage became essential. Life underground was claustrophobic but strategic. Science of construction and soil stability determined effectiveness. These hidden networks proved that innovation could take root literally beneath the surface, turning Earth itself into a weaponized landscape. Chapter 44. Barbed wire and mines created deadly mazes. Explosive science shaped defensive planning. Engineers calculated placement and triggers to maximize impact. Soldiers faced constant danger, balancing progress with caution. Strategy now involved predicting human behavior as much as applying mechanical principles. Small devices had massive effects, proving that science could amplify destruction far beyond size or visibility. Chapter 45. Rations evolved to sustain soldiers in extreme conditions. Science of nutrition, preservation, and transport improved survival. Canned food, biscuits, and portable meals became lifelines. Every calorie mattered under physical stress. logistics and biology intertwined. Maintaining energy levels determined not just individual survival, but the efficiency of entire units. The battlefield depended on science feeding strategy, linking chemistry and biology to victory. Chapter 46. The use of observation posts revolutionized artillery. Elevated positions allowed accurate targeting over long distances. Science of optics, angles, and triangulation guided shell fire. Coordinated observation and communication made attacks more lethal. Every vantage point became a tool. Knowledge from above reshaped the battlefield, proving that perspective and calculation were as deadly as weapons themselves. Chapter 47. Submarine warfare forced the development of depth charges. Science of explosives, pressure, and timing became critical. Destroyers hunted U-boats, testing detection and precision. Every engagement depended on calculations and coordination. The unseen underwater battlefield demanded understanding physics and engineering. Technology turned oceans into lethal chessboards where survival required both skill and scientific insight. Chapter 48. War medals and honors boosted morale. Recognition became a psychological tool. Science of motivation showed that acknowledgement encouraged bravery and endurance. Soldiers risked lives partly for personal and collective pride. Human behavior intertwined with military strategy. The battlefield wasn't just physical, it was also emotional, proving that understanding psychology could change outcomes as much as artillery or tactics. Chapter 49. Poison gas required rapid innovation. Soldiers adapted masks, hoods, and clothing to survive chemical attacks. Chemistry dictated tactics and defense. Training focused on reaction speed and discipline. Gas forced armies to think about invisible threats. Science could kill or protect, depending on knowledge. Survival wasn't random. It depended on preparation, understanding, and applying chemical principles under extreme pressure. Chapter 50. Medical research accelerated under wartime pressure. New treatments, antiseptics, and surgical techniques saved thousands. Hospitals became laboratories of life-saving innovation. Science turned desperation into discovery. Every life preserved was proof that knowledge could counteract destruction. The war showed that innovation wasn't limited to weapons. It could protect, heal, and redefine human resilience even amid catastrophe. Chapter 51. Air raids introduced early warning systems. Bells, sirens, and spotters became lifelines. Science of sound, distance, and reaction time saved lives. Civilians and soldiers alike learned to move quickly and strategically. Technology turned panic into planned response. War was no longer confined to front lines. The sky itself demanded preparation and understanding, proving that science could defend even against unseen threats above. Chapter 52. Rail transport enabled rapid troop deployment. Trains carried soldiers, ammunition, and supplies across continents. Engineering, scheduling, and coordination became strategic tools. Delays could cost entire offensives. Science of logistics determined survival and effectiveness. Armies that mastered transport gained advantages beyond combat. The battlefield extended to railways and stations, where precise planning became as lethal as artillery. Chapter 53. The chemical weapon arms race escalated. Chlorine, phosgene, and mustard gas challenged human limits. Science of chemistry became a weapon of terror. Protective gear evolved alongside attacks, creating a deadly cycle of innovation. Survival depended on understanding reactions, exposure, and timing. War revealed that knowledge could both destroy and save, turning science into a battlefield itself. Chapter 54. Field hospitals operated under extreme pressure. Triage, surgery, and care required quick thinking and skill. Medical science evolved rapidly, saving thousands despite primitive conditions. Every decision carried life-or-death consequences. War accelerated innovation in human anatomy, infection control, and treatment protocols. Survival depended on efficiency, training, and improvisation, proving that science and compassion could coexist even in chaos. Chapter 55. Tanks changed trench warfare permanently. Early models were slow, but advances improved speed and armor. Science of mechanics, metalworking, and strategy combined. Soldiers adapted tactics around these new machines. Tanks symbolized industrialized war, blending human coordination with mechanical power. The battlefield became dynamic, showing that innovation could reshape combat entirely, forcing armies to rethink age-old strategies. Chapter 56. Wireless radios transformed communication. Orders, intelligence, and updates traveled instantly, replacing slower methods. Science of electricity, waves, and signal clarity became strategic. Messages dictated movements, reinforcements, and responses. Miscommunication could be fatal. Technology shrank the battlefield, allowing coordination over vast distances. War proved that understanding physics and electronics could control outcomes without firing a single shot. Chapter 57. War inspired early flight reconnaissance photography. Cameras captured enemy positions from the sky. Science of optics, chemistry, and mechanics turned images into intelligence. Commanders gained perspectives previously impossible. Observation became a weapon. A single photograph could prevent ambushes or guide artillery. War elevated knowledge, showing that seeing and analyzing could be as decisive as shooting or digging. Chapter 58. Psychological resilience became a survival skill. Soldiers endured fear, boredom, and trauma in trenches. Early studies of morale and behavior influenced training. Science of human reaction, stress, and leadership became critical. Units with high cohesion often survived better. War revealed that mental strength could rival physical strength. The mind itself became a battlefield, shaping both tactics and endurance. Chapter 59. Machine guns redefined infantry tactics. Rapid fire forced soldiers to dig in, move carefully, or coordinate closely. Science of mechanics and targeting increased lethality. Survival depended on strategy, speed, and precision. Entire battles shifted because of engineering improvements. Technology dictated human behavior, proving that mechanization could change the rules of engagement completely. Chapter 60. Medical evacuations improved with motorized ambulances. Speed, organization, and science of care increased survival rates. Soldiers moved from front lines to hospitals efficiently. Every second mattered. Logistics, engineering, and medical knowledge intertwined. War demonstrated that mobility and treatment could save lives, turning science and strategy into a race against time. Survival became a combination of planning, technology, and human resilience. Chapter 61. Artillery barrages shaped entire landscapes. Shells destroyed trenches, forests, and roads. Science of ballistics, powder, and timing dictated effectiveness. Soldiers adapted to constant bombardment, building deeper shelters and new tactics. Survival required understanding trajectories and listening for patterns. War turned Earth into a laboratory of destruction, proving that physics could dictate life, death, and strategy simultaneously. Chapter 62. Wireless telegraphy allowed instant orders over distances. Morse code connected frontlines to command centers. Science of signals and electronics became crucial. Quick decisions and coordination depended on technology. Messages could change battles before soldiers even moved. Communication became a weapon. Understanding waves, interference, and speed of transmission transformed war, showing that brains and machines could outmatch raw force. Chapter 63. Medical advances included antiseptics and improved surgery. Infection control saved countless lives. Science of bacteria and sterilization became critical under primitive conditions. Doctors experimented with methods to treat injuries quickly and safely. Survival rates increased despite mass casualties. Knowledge of the human body and hygiene became as vital as weapons. Life itself depended on applying science amid chaos. Chapter 64. Flamethrowers introduced terror to trenches. Fire science made them psychological as well as physical weapons. Soldiers faced fear before heat. Tactical innovation reshaped assaults and defenses. Every deployment demanded coordination and courage. Technology combined with human instinct to dominate the battlefield. Survival wasn't just physical. It required adapting to science that manipulated perception and fear. Chapter 65. Observation balloons elevated artillery accuracy. Spotters communicated positions to gunners below. Science of optics, triangulation, and communication improved targeting. Every balloon carried risk from enemy fire. Intelligence from above shaped battle outcomes. Knowledge literally looked down on the battlefield. War proved that height, vision, and science could combine to give one side decisive advantage. Chapter 66. Tanks broke stalemates in trench warfare. Metal, armor, and firepower moved together. Engineering, mechanics, and tactics merged. Soldiers adapted to new machines that could crush defenses. Early models were slow, but innovation was rapid. The battlefield became dynamic. War showed that combining human skill with technology could change centuries-old strategies almost overnight. Chapter 67. Poison gas forced rapid protective innovation. Soldiers developed masks, hoods, and decontamination techniques. Chemistry dictated survival. Gas attacks created invisible threats that science could counter. Timing, knowledge, and discipline became life-saving factors. Technology became both destroyer and protector. Survival depended on understanding chemical reactions and reacting faster than the enemy. Chapter 68. Dogs carried messages and detected explosives. Animal behavior became a practical tool in warfare. Science of training and conditioning enhanced reliability. Their instincts complemented human strategy. Small creatures could save lives, sometimes entire missions. Biology became part of military science. War demonstrated that survival required knowledge of both machines and living allies. Chapter 69. Trench foot and disease remained constant threats. Science of hygiene and preventative care evolved under harsh conditions. Foot baths, rotations, and clean socks saved lives. Soldiers faced nature's deadly effects as much as the enemy. Adaptation and knowledge became critical. War taught that survival wasn't just about weapons. It was about understanding and countering invisible threats. Chapter 70. Economic mobilization fueled war efforts. Factories produced weapons, vehicles, and supplies at unprecedented speed. Science of production, logistics, and efficiency became strategic assets. Civilians supported armies through labor and funding. Victory depended as much on industrial output as on battlefield tactics. Modern war demanded coordination of people, machines, and resources, showing that science shaped not only battles, but entire nations. Chapter 71. Airplanes dropped bombs with increasing precision. Pilots learned navigation, mechanics, and timing. Science of aerodynamics shaped targeting and survival. Every flight risked anti-aircraft fire or engine failure. Observation and bombing merged technology and human skill. The sky became a battlefield, proving that control of air could influence land outcomes, turning physics into a strategic weapon. Chapter 72. Trench networks expanded underground. Soldiers dug tunnels for movement, storage, and surprise attacks. Engineering and geology became tools of survival. Ventilation and drainage prevented disease and collapse. Knowledge of soil, angles, and support structures mattered as much as weapons. The earth itself became a strategic ally or enemy. War demonstrated that survival often required digging deeper, literally and figuratively. Chapter 73. Artillery calculations became precise science. Distance, powder, and elevation determined effectiveness. Engineers and gunners coordinated to destroy enemy positions efficiently. Miscalculations could be fatal. Every shell combined physics with strategy. Soldiers adapted to patterns and timing, learning to predict barrages. War proved that survival depended not just on courage, but on understanding the science behind destruction. Chapter 74. Flamethrowers introduced psychological warfare. Fire created fear as well as casualties. Soldiers adjusted tactics to avoid exposure. Combustion science dictated range and impact. Strategy merged human behavior with technology. Survival required awareness, courage, and adaptability. Innovation reshaped offensive and defensive thinking. War became a blend of physical danger, scientific understanding, and psychological manipulation. Chapter 75. Submarines attacked supply lines with stealth. Underwater navigation, pressure calculations, and torpedo science defined effectiveness. Detection was difficult. Countermeasures required sonar and patrols. Oceans became hidden battlefields where knowledge outweighed brute force. Survival depended on skill, observation, and prediction. War extended far beyond trenches, proving that invisible threats could dominate global conflict. Chapter 76. Medical triage became systematic. Injuries were classified by severity and survivability. Science of emergency care increased efficiency and survival. Decisions were rapid, balancing morality and practicality. Hospitals functioned as organized life-saving machines. Knowledge of anatomy, infection, and logistics saved lives daily. War highlighted that careful planning and applied science could combat chaos and death simultaneously. Chapter 77. Wireless radios allowed real-time orders across miles. Morse code connected commanders to troops. Science of signals, electricity, and wave transmission shaped strategy. Coordination improved dramatically. Miscommunication could be fatal. Technology turned the battlefield into a connected network, showing that control of information could be as decisive as control of land. Chapter 78. Dogs served as scouts, messengers, and companions. Training merged animal instincts with human strategy. Science of behavior and conditioning enhanced reliability. Small creatures influenced survival and mission success. Biology became a practical tool of war. Nature and science combined, demonstrating that allies came in many forms beyond weapons and machinery. Chapter 79. The Spanish flu spread rapidly in crowded conditions. Science of virology was limited, but physicians worked tirelessly to contain it. Soldiers faced infection alongside bullets. Disease shaped strategy, delayed operations, and claimed more lives than some battles. War revealed that biology and medicine could influence history. Invisible threats sometimes outweighed visible ones, proving the battlefield was more than trenches and guns. Chapter 80. Economic strategy sustained armies. Factories, workers, and resources fueled weapon production. Science of efficiency, logistics, and management determined capability. Civilians contributed through labor and finance. Survival and victory depended as much on production as on tactics. Modern warfare merged industry, planning, and technology, showing that battles were fought not only with soldiers, but with knowledge, coordination, and resources. Chapter 81. Machine guns transformed infantry tactics. Rapid fire made open attacks deadly. Soldiers adapted by digging, moving cautiously, and coordinating closely. Science of mechanics and targeting increased lethality. Entire battles shifted because of engineering improvements. Technology dictated human behavior, proving that mechanization could change the rules of engagement almost overnight. Survival demanded strategy, awareness, and timing. Chapter 82. Observation balloons hovered above battlefields. Spotters relayed enemy positions to artillery units below. Optics and communication science increased accuracy. Every balloon carried risk from enemy fire. Height gave perspective, transforming strategy. Knowledge gained from above often outweighed brute force. The sky became as important as land, showing that intelligence could shape outcomes without a single shot fired. Chapter 83. Trench foot and disease were constant killers. Hygiene science, rotations, and preventive measures saved thousands. Soldiers adapted to mud, cold, and filth. Survival relied on understanding nature and simple biological principles. War proved that even tiny conditions could decide life or death. Human endurance and applied science became as critical as weapons on the battlefield. Chapter 84. Airplanes became tools of reconnaissance and bombing. Pilots mastered navigation, mechanics, and aerodynamics. Knowledge of physics and strategy determined survival. Observation and combat merged above trenches, expanding the battlefield vertically. Sky dominance influenced land outcomes. Technology transformed warfare into a multi-dimensional challenge, blending human skill with scientific understanding. Chapter 85. Flamethrowers and incendiary devices terrorized trenches. Chemistry and combustion science created psychological and physical threats. Soldiers learned new strategies to cope. Fire reshaped offensive and defensive thinking. Survival depended on awareness, adaptation, and courage. Science became a tool to manipulate fear, proving that innovation affected both minds and bodies in war. Chapter 86. Tanks crushed barbed wire and broke stalemates. Metal engineering, mechanics, and tactics combined. Soldiers adjusted to machines that redefined strategy. Early models were slow, but improvements were rapid. Battlefields became dynamic. Human coordination and mechanical power merged, showing that innovation could rewrite centuries-old combat rules almost instantly. Chapter 87. Poison gas forced innovation in protection. Masks, hoods, and decontamination techniques evolved. Chemistry dictated both attack and defense. Quick reactions, training, and discipline became life-saving. Survival depended on understanding chemical reactions and timing. Science could either destroy or protect, turning knowledge into a battlefield weapon as deadly as any gun. Chapter 88. Dogs carried messages, detected explosives, and supported morale. Animal instincts were harnessed through science and training. Small creatures influenced survival and mission outcomes. Biology became a practical aspect of warfare. War proved that allies were not only human or mechanical. Nature itself could be a tool, combining instinct and science in deadly efficiency. Chapter 89. Economic mobilization powered armies. Factories, transportation, and resources became strategic assets. Science of logistics, production, and efficiency dictated war capability. Civilians supported the front through labor and finance. Victory depended as much on resources as tactics. Modern warfare showed that survival required coordination of knowledge, industry, and planning, alongside courage on the battlefield. Chapter 90. Medical innovation accelerated under crisis. Antiseptics, surgeries, and emergency care saved countless lives. Field hospitals became centers of applied science. Every life preserved was proof that knowledge could counteract destruction. War demonstrated that innovation was as critical as weaponry, showing that science and strategy could protect humans even amid widespread chaos. Chapter 91. Wireless radios connected distant units instantly. Morse code allowed rapid commands and updates. Science of electricity and waves became a strategic advantage. Quick communication determined reinforcement, retreat, or attack. Missteps could be fatal. Technology shrank battlefields, turning coordination into a weapon. Knowledge of signals and timing proved as decisive as firepower, showing brains and machines could outperform raw strength. Chapter 92. Trenches stretched across continents, forming deadly networks. Soldiers dug tunnels for protection, supply lines and ambushes. Engineering and soil science shaped survival. Ventilation, drainage, and camouflage prevented collapse and disease. Underground landscapes became strategic zones. War demonstrated that understanding terrain and applying practical science could give soldiers an edge, turning the earth itself into a battlefield ally. Chapter 93. Artillery precision changed warfare. Calculations of distance, elevation, and powder created deadly accuracy. Engineers and gunners merged physics with strategy. Miscalculations were fatal. Shells reshaped terrain, morale, and outcomes. Survival required observation, timing, and understanding mechanics. War proved that industrialized weaponry could magnify destruction, and knowledge of science could determine who lived and who died. Chapter 94. Observation balloons improved artillery targeting. Spotters relayed real-time positions from above. Optics, triangulation, and signaling science enhanced accuracy. Every balloon was vulnerable to enemy fire, making information valuable and risky. Height provided perspective that could influence battles. Knowledge from above sometimes outweighed brute force, proving intelligence and science could dominate land combat without firing a single shot. Chapter 95. Machine guns made open attacks deadly. Rapid fire forced soldiers to dig in, move cautiously, and coordinate closely. Mechanical science increased lethality. Entire battles shifted due to engineering improvements. Survival depended on strategy, awareness, and timing. Mechanization changed combat rules, demonstrating that human behavior and technology were inseparable in modern warfare. Chapter 96. Medical triage saved lives efficiently. Injuries were classified for treatment based on urgency. Science of emergency care improved outcomes under extreme conditions. Hospitals became structured, life-saving systems. Knowledge of anatomy, infection control, and logistics reduced fatalities. War proved that organized science could counter chaos, showing that careful planning could preserve life even amid widespread destruction. Chapter 97. Poison gas attacks demanded rapid adaptation. Soldiers developed protective masks, hoods, and decontamination methods. Chemistry dictated both attack and defense. Reaction speed, knowledge, and discipline became critical. Science could either kill or save. Survival depended on understanding invisible chemical threats and applying knowledge faster than the enemy, showing that intellect could be as lethal as weapons. Chapter 98. Dogs played vital roles in communication, reconnaissance, and detecting danger. Training merged biology with strategy. Small animals influenced outcomes in significant ways. Nature became a tool of war, proving that survival relied not just on technology or humans, but also on the instincts of living allies. Science and biology combined to create unexpected advantages on the battlefield. Chapter 99. Economic mobilization sustained armies. Factories produced weapons, vehicles, and supplies. Logistics, efficiency, and resource management became strategic tools. Civilians contributed through labor and finance. Modern war required coordination of industry, planning, and technology. Victory depended as much on production capacity as on battlefield strategy, showing that science and organization were as essential as courage and firepower. Chapter 100. World War I reshaped history. Technology, science, and innovation transformed warfare. Artillery, tanks, airplanes, and medicine advanced rapidly. Human endurance, strategy, and adaptation determined survival. Knowledge became as important as strength. The war taught that science, observation, and innovation could save or destroy lives. Humanity learned that even amid chaos, intelligence and courage could leave a lasting mark. World War I changed the world forever. Science, strategy, and human courage left lessons that still echo today. Every fact is a reminder of innovation, survival, and the resilience of humanity. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to explore more stories that uncover history.